I welcome all of you who are here in person and those who are joining us online. As I said, I'm very excited about a Lenten series on death and dying, which might seem strange, but I think it's so appropriate for the season of Lent, which begins with our Ash Wednesday liturgy, where we are reminded that we are dust and to dust we shall return. So we're all on a journey with Jesus on the way to the cross. That's what Lent is about. And so in planning for this series, my hope was that we would have an experience where we had an opportunity to be authentic with ourselves and with one another about our own deaths and about the nature of death. So that this would be an experience that would not only educate our minds, but would form our hearts, that would change us. And after working with these incredibly gifted and intuitive, passionate women, I believe my hopes will not only be met, but exceeded. So I'm going to ask now for these three to introduce themselves and give an idea of what we're going to be about today. And as I mentioned before, there are schedules for our series, and we will pass those out, and those will be available online as well. And we can go a little longer, I think. The service doesn't begin until 10:30, although I might have to leave a bit early. So if you all would introduce yourselves.
Yeah, I can definitely start. I hope you can hear me online. I'll just say a few words about who I am, how I come to this. I'm actually coming to the topic of death and dying as a musician. During the week, I play for people in end-of-life care and people who are severely ill. So I'm in those moments with people during the week, and in my alter ego as a scholar, I've also worked with the historical music that was sung for people at the deathbed in the time period before we had medical resources to offer. But I want to be completely honest with you all. I'm really looking forward to this series more for what I can learn, because even though I feel like I have spend a lot of time with people in these situations, there are still a lot of questions I have, and the topic of death covers all aspects of our lives. So there are still areas surrounding, legal issues, paperwork that I need to learn about and complete myself. So we're hoping for this series that it's very comprehensive and that we all have something to bring and something to learn.
And you are Elaine.
And I'm Elaine. Thank you, John.
Hey friends, I'm Amy. Like Elaine, I have much to learn. I've been learning about death in a very conscious way for 23 years. 23 years ago this month, I was helping my infant son learn how to live. He was doing all the cool first year things like learning to eat and talk and walk. And I was at the same time learning how to die. I very suddenly became very, very ill. I got a diagnosis for a terminal condition that no one had survived longer than 2 years at that point, and I was given 2 weeks to live. I still have that terminal diagnosis. I have a couple others added to the mix, a new one just a couple weeks ago, in fact. So it's been 23 years of me learning how to do this, because what I found back then was I had lots of ideas about death and dying, but I had not practiced, and my culture had not taught me how to practice for death and dying. Surrender is not something here that we spend a lot of time and energy working with. So I cast a huge net at that time to gather teachers and practices and tools. And it is my honor to share those through, currently I'm a chaplain at a hospital. I've been at hospice for a long time. And this year I'm at a hospital setting. But like Elaine, I feel like there's still so much for me to learn. I have been at maybe hundreds of deaths, I'm not sure. Each one is its own unique experience, and it's a sacred experience, sometimes messy, sometimes not. And every time I talk to someone new, like each of you, I learn something new about surrender. So I am just as grateful to be a participant as I am to be a presenter.
Great. Can you guys hear me in the room okay?
Yeah.
A little bit? Okay, great. I'm Alex Donovan, and I'm really, really honored to be working with these amazing women who I count as friends, first and foremost. And grateful to be part of this series. So I am also a chaplain. I was working in the hospice setting. I currently work in a healthcare staff support role. So my primary role right now is to support healthcare workers on their own journeys of grief and loss as they care for patients. But my real learning, I think, in the death and dying realm happened at age 25 for me when I lost my mom to cancer, and that, like Amy and Elaine have both shared, was just the most sacred experience. It was my greatest encounter with what I would call hell. It was also my greatest encounter with what I would call heaven. Just that sense of eternity breaking in that moment. And so much of my orientation in my life still points me back to that bedside. And I think that's probably why I do the work that I do. So I'm really excited for this series as a way for us to normalize these conversations and begin to think about a good death, because a good death, what we mean by a good death is really a good life. And so the series really is about us living a good life. I'm really excited to jump into it with everyone. And like my partners here, I've got a lot to learn from all of this. So I'm excited.
Okay, this, as Felicia said, we want this to be not just a place where we share information for your heads. We want to stretch your hearts, even work with our bodies with death, because death affects all areas of us. So we've designed this whole series to have a lot of rich content for your head. Don't worry about that. But also every week we'll be working with some practices. We'll have incredible music for your time for reflection. We're going to start this week with some stations, right? Everybody will get to do 3 different activities. And here we have them physically located in 3 different places. So this table is one. That table where Wealtha is another. And the other table back where Holly is another. So I know we have lots of people. As soon as we start, we're going to get you into groups. We might have to shuffle. Because there's so many of you, which is so exciting. So each station you'll be at for 10 minutes. The station over here where Wealtha and Florian and Raven are sitting, I will be guiding that station. And we have there what's called a death deck. It's a card of questions, and that will guide our discussion together at that station. And I should mention, at every station and throughout this whole series, this is for you. So if something feels too edgy, if you don't want to participate in the way that we're suggesting, that is absolutely fine. No homework, no directives, no rules. So over there, we'll be working with the death deck. At this table, who's here?
Oh, I'll be at this table, yeah.
And you will be working to plan your obituary, just to start brainstorming. And Alex has made some really beautiful prompts for you to think about. It's a great time of exploration. And as Alex mentioned, thinking about how we want to be remembered, thinking about our deaths helps us think about how we're living in our lives. So everyone will get a chance to work with that. And then at that table over there with Holly, you will have a chance to let us know what you hope to get from this series, questions you have, anything that maybe you would never say aloud, a fear you have about death, a regret you have about maybe being with someone who is dying in a way that today you would wish you were with them differently, anything at all. We have a jar, right, where you can add little index cards that's entirely anonymous. We will use that as a guide for us as we work to flesh out the rest of our series. At that table, you might finish early, you might not. If you do, feel free to go to the back table where there are images, a variety of images of death. At the very end, after we've each done the stations, we'll be using those for a practice. But those of you who are at that table, you might get done early. Just feel free to go and find an image, allow an image to call you and pick that up and just start to work with it. It might call you because it feels comforting. It might call you because it feels the opposite of comforting. Just allow yourself to be drawn to an image. We'll give you more information about that practice later today. So we'll start off, we'll have 10 minutes at each station. One of these ladies will ring a bell at the end of 10 minutes and we'll just, we should say which way we're going. Okay, we're gonna go this way. What is that
Counter.
counterclockwise? We're gonna move counterclockwise. And then at the end of our third 10-minute, Sean, Elaine will gather us back together for a little debrief of that before we go into this practice.
And if I could add just one thing at the table with the questions where you can write your own questions, we will be having some experts in legal issues, medical issues coming. So if you have questions surrounding those topics that you want to have asked of the speakers, please do drop them in there. We'll be reviewing all those. And it's a way to ask a question privately if you're not sure you would want to, say that to the group.
Thank you. Okay. Okay.
Great. Can everyone hear who's on Zoom?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, welcome everyone. So we get to kind of go through the stations ourselves, be our own little group together, which I think is exciting. Does anyone have any questions or anything that they couldn't hear from the intros? I put that schedule at the very top. I can repost it if anyone needs it, but just so that you have a teaser of what's coming for the future sessions. There's some really exciting stuff. I'm really looking forward to the lawyers coming. Those are questions that I have the answers I need for myself personally. And I'm hoping my friend Emily Pitts, who's a nurse practitioner, will also join us to help with some medical questions. So be sure to check out that schedule. But let's get started. Our first station is what Amy was describing as the death deck. So it's a set of questions. The physical deck, of course, is in the room. But what I'm going to do is draw them at random from some images I've loaded. And I'll put the images in the chat so you can also see them. But these are conversation starters. I'm going to change my view so I can see all of your faces. Great. These are just conversation starters to get us thinking, warming up, talking about this topic, which can be really taboo. And again, always feel free to pass, but you can come off mute. You can put something in the chat box as a response. Let me grab these for us. All right. Let's do. This question. I'm going to put the image in the chat too, but the question is, when I can no longer tell you what I want to hear, please play A, my all-time favorite music playlist, B, audiobooks or inspirational words, or C, the sounds of the ocean or a river with a bedpan nearby. Put that in. You can just throw it in the chat or come off mute. Oh, that image isn't going. So the response, this is if you're at the end of your life and you can no longer communicate your wishes. Do you want to hear music, an audiobook or a podcast, or it's just kind of calming music? A little of each. I like that. Yeah, some of all three. Anyone else? Or you can add your own topic. This seems like a kind of trivial question, but this is actually hugely important. This is a huge quality of life question for all of us when we're at the end. Music, I already asked Elaine to do with me. Oh my gosh, I love that. That's fantastic. Music. Natural images. So not sound, but something quiet with beautiful images. That's great. These are things you want to keep note of for your own living wills too. Details that a medical professional wouldn't necessarily ask you, but your loved ones would want to know. Elaine's music and the sound of the ocean. Yeah, love it. Okay, good. Next question, and these I'm just pulling these at random. Okay, the best death for me would take place A, at home, B, in a hospital, C, while doing something I love. Something I love. See, Regina. Yeah. Which might be at home. Yeah. Something I love. Yeah, they all have trade-offs, right? Some give you time to prepare. Some have more of an element of comfort. And something I love sounds like it's probably quite sudden, but you're happy. Anyone else? No one's putting hospital. Not that surprising. Although for some people, if you, and we'll get to this in our series, but if you're, we'll try to probe our greatest fears about death and dying. And if you have a condition and you're really worried about breathing and being able to breathe, for some people, it might be more comfortable to know that you're going to be in a hospital setting. Although there are alternative options to making sure you're comfortable at home too. But good, okay. Good, again, take note of these. These are important elements to note for your own healthcare wishes. All right, I'm selecting this one. Oh, this one is an open-ended swan song. What's a story or song that you hope is shared at your funeral or celebration of life? Story or song? Oh yeah, Linda added concern if someone can't take care of you. Yeah, the hospital might be a choice then. Patricia, hospice, definitely, which could be home, could be in a hospice facility. So story or song? I can tell you, Mark, my husband, has a Irish drinking song that's sung at a lot of Irish wakes that I already know is his choice. It's a really celebratory, beautiful song. That's what he would want. How great thou art. That's beautiful. Yeah. If you're thinking of a story and you're not fully formulating it yet, consider hanging on to that. We can put that in our little obituary exercise too. Anyone else have anything? Again, a medical professional won't ask you this for your living will or your advanced directive, but your loved ones might want to know if there's a favorite song that you would really like. It can help them in their planning. Okay. More time contemplating that. Yeah, I do too, actually. Okay. Let's do gospel music. Nice. Let's do one more before we switch. Pachelbel's getting a D. Beautiful. Okay. This one also is open-ended. Time well spent. You've just received a prognosis of 6 months to live, but feel pretty healthy. How do you spend your time? See loved ones that you haven't seen since COVID. Yeah. Take another trip if possible. Good. With friends and in nature. Good. In my line of work, we talk about death as one of our greatest allies, one of our greatest friends. We think of death as the enemy, but I like to think of death as a friend. And in one way in which death can be our ally is to ask ourselves this kind of question and say, well, what if this happened tomorrow? Why am I waiting to do any of these things? So more time at our cabin, visiting my close family and friends in Switzerland, California, wherever they may be. Beautiful. So my encouragement would be to take something from your list, and even if we're going to live 20, 30, 40 more years, do this as soon as you can, because what do you have to lose by doing these things? Yeah. Good, great. Okay, I think for time, we probably want to switch. So I'm going to encourage you to grab a pen and paper if you can. And we will have some quiet, reflective time to work on writing our own obituaries. And the purpose of this, again, is not to be morose, but to think about what a good life looks like now. And if there are things that you wish would show up in your obituary that wouldn't show up in your obituary now is the time we can make those changes in our own lives. So I'm going to put the prompts in the chat. I'll also read them for you. You don't have to do all of them. And this is really just a paragraph or two to get you thinking. I'll read them for us. So just a few potential phrases or questions to get you started. You can incorporate any of them. So your name will best be remembered for, he or she or they was always quick to say yes to, which often meant saying no to. The legacy they leave behind is, at the end of the day, what mattered most to them was the best thing they ever did in life was they were proudest of. If they could leave the world with a parting message, it would be, and then of course, add anything you want. Pick and choose from those as they call to you. I'll set my timer for about 10 minutes and I'll wrap us back up here when it goes off. You won't be forced to share these. You're welcome to if you want, but this is just for you. All right, that was a little short of 10 minutes. If you're still writing, return to this later. I think this is helpful. Any general comments on, not on what you wrote, but how it felt to write that? Scattered, sure, yeah.
This was one of the hardest things I've ever tried to write.
My camera's not, oh, that's Jana saying that. There you are, yeah, hi. Yeah, what made it hard?
Having to judge my actions over time and discovering maybe how narrow my reach has been in some ways.
Huh.
I don't think it's narrow, but when I try to put words to it, it seems narrow.
It's sure hard to capture a life in words.
I mean, huge novels have been written about this.
Right, that's why they're huge. Yeah, beautiful. Did it make you want to do anything today or tomorrow to be part of that expansiveness you're connecting to and wanting?
It reinforced some of what I've been doing. And
Nice.
yes, it makes me want to reach out further.
I love that. That's fantastic. That's the best gift of this kind of exercise.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jen. Amazing. Patricia felt scary at first and then felt free to say some of my truth. I love that. That's part of the power of writing. Yeah. Beautiful. Good. Anyone else? I love that. Okay. We will switch to our third exercise that we'll be doing as a group before we move to our debrief and final practice. But I'm going to, unfortunately, in the room, they're able to do this anonymously with the little Dropbox system. We tried to make an anonymous chat. We weren't able to, but what I'll do, I'm going to drop our questions in the chat again. And this is the kind of the what are you afraid to ask, but always wanted to know more about section. If you want it to be anonymous, you can private message me. I'll read it to the group, but I won't share the name. And I'll take a note of it for us. And these questions, your responses to this question helps us shape the series moving forward to make sure we or other guest speakers address anything that you're wanting to make sure we talk about. So you can put it in the chat, you can private message it to me. And this doesn't have to take the full 10 minutes, but we'd love to know what you're thinking about. Maybe afraid to ask or not afraid to ask, but just haven't had a chance.
Alex,
Yeah, you do.
they can ask a question anonymously if they just ask it to you in the chat and not everybody.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you Judy, remind me, you like in the
So
two section.
there where it says where it says type message here above it, it says everyone. Like if you click on that, you can pick Alex Donovan and only Alex will see it.
Yeah.
If they want it anonymous. If they don't care, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Judy. Good. So as you think about this series, and it doesn't have to be a big question, just what are you hoping to get out of it? I think is also really a helpful comment for us too.
Can we just say it?
Yeah, I'll make it. I've got a list here.
I was just gonna say, I was just looking forward to the part with the lawyers.
Yeah, anything in particular?
Yeah.
Me too. Me too. Judy.
Probably things I don't know.
Yeah. But I'm, again, like I said, my friend Emily, who's a geriatric nurse practitioner who does a lot of work with advanced care planning and end of life. She's hoping to accompany us for some of the advanced care planning healthcare wish sections as well. So be thinking about anything you have questions about. What does DNR mean? What does CPR look like? What are the pros and cons of intubation or a ventilator? If should I ever need it? So those kinds of specific questions are really good to have in mind too. Questions about hospice. You've got several hospice workers that would be able to help you. Oh, Patricia, experience of persons having premonitions or dreams about impending death. That's a great one. Put that in the vault. Yeah, where our I believe it's next time we're talking about experience with the dying, and that would be great to wrap in there. Yeah, good one. How to practice letting go, Charlotte. I love it. Yeah. Okay, this one's anonymous. Understanding about when it's appropriate to send someone to a facility when the person can no longer be physically cared for at home. What are the rights of family in terms of access? Great question. Broad scope of the session is good. More specifically, coping with hard, debilitating illnesses and death. Great. Yeah, we can dig into some of those. And we won't cover everything in this series, but we will hopefully have made some good connections and conversation partners that we can keep those conversations going. Good. Beautiful. Okay. Anything else? If you think of something later, you can shoot me an email, shoot Amy or Felicia or Elaine an email. We'll make sure that we take a note. Oh, the missed section, this question about missed sessions. I will actually also be traveling, not this next one, but the next. They will all be recorded. So, which is partly why we were trying so hard to make sure that this section, that we could hear them so that you'll also, those who need the recording will have a good quality recording. So we should have recordings from all of them. Great. Good questions. Anything else? How to access the recordings. I will talk to Lori about publicizing the recordings. I know they're all stored in the section of the website where all of our adult forum recordings are stored, but I'll make sure that that's easy to get to because I struggle with that too. Okay, great. Thank you all. Again, keep them coming. You don't need to stop as you think of more questions. Send them over.
I think if you just go to the St. Paul's YouTube channel, that's where everything lives. I'm not sure how it's organized on there, but
I didn't know that, Judy. Thank you.
that's what it's linked to on the website. It might be easier to go to the website than navigate YouTube sometimes.
Yeah. Share where everything lives. Yeah, I agree, Linda. Okay. Good. Okay, awesome. Great. And as we're preparing, I know, so originally we were going to debrief how these 3 little stations went with the larger group. With the tech issues, I think we're probably going to just do that amongst ourselves. And then I'm going to give you a little time to choose an image for our final practice. Any overall thoughts about just today's intro, your hope for the series? Anything you're wishing we could hear from the other room? I do wish we could hear all those questions. We could also do one more death deck question if you want. How does it feel to be jumping into this topic in general? Grateful for this opportunity. Me too. I was so excited when Felicia brought this to our attention, and I wonder, and truly wonder if this is something that we as a church community might want to be offering on a yearly basis, because I think it's such a need and a community service too. So you should have 3 to choose from for now. We're going to encourage folks to use whatever image they choose throughout the rest of the week. So if none of these really does it for you, again, request link and access to that link. Okay, I haven't heard from Amy. Let's go ahead and do the exercise together. And then if we do it again, then you guys will have a head start. So pick your image. Everyone was able to access at least one of them. Okay. So the practice that we're going to do is called Visio Divina. You've probably heard of Lectio Divina, which is reading with divine guidance. This is viewing with divine guidance. And it's a really simple practice. It's just using visual art instead of the written word to kind of guide a meditative practice, a prayer practice for ourselves. And thank you all. Okay, great. So we're going to go ahead and wrap it up ourselves. I think they may be a little behind. Probably you all don't need to hop right away because you may be sticking around for service, but I want to honor our time just in case. So we'll go ahead and wrap us up together just with our group. So again, we'll take that image, and again, it is like Lectio Divina, Visio Divina is a way of kind of asking God to accompany us in a practice, and it's a different way of praying. And so what I'm going to invite you to do is to take your image either in your mind's eye or if you have it pulled up on a screen, just sit with it in a few minutes of silence. And there are 2 questions that I invite you to think about. And the first question is about a question. The first question is, as I look at this image, what comes to mind? What question do I maybe have of God about my own life, my own death, life in general, death in general? So what question comes to mind as I look at this image? Spend a little bit with that, and I'll give you the next one here in a second. And then the second part, whenever you're ready, is what whisper of a response do I start to hear from God? Doesn't have to be an answer, just what whispers am I hearing as God accompanies me with this image and this question? You may want to jot a few thoughts down. You may want to just hold this in the silence of your heart. That is the very simple practice of Visio Divina. I encourage you to keep this image close to you throughout the week. We'll introduce new practices at each of our sessions, and you can try this with one of the other images as well. So that's what we had today. In the room, what we'll do, they're actually going to leave together in silence, and Elaine is going to play some music. So in future sessions online, we'll try to have some music incorporated, some from Elaine, hopefully, that we can get to enjoy for those of us online as well. But thank you all so much. Thank you for your responses. I'm going to share those with Amy and Elaine and Felicia, and I'm looking forward to continuing this conversation. This is just the start. Thank you all. Thanks. See you all very soon. Take care.